Welcome to Life Stories, where the woman they tried to erase didn't just survive, she rewrote the rules. What would you do if you built something extraordinary, only to discover that the people you trusted planned to cut you out the moment it succeeded? She gave everything, her time, her ideas, her loyalty, only to find out through a single message she was never meant to see that it was all disposable. But instead of breaking, she made a decision that would change everything, not just for her, but for the very people who tried to bury her. This is not a story about revenge. It's about power, identity, and the quiet fire of someone who chose belief over bitterness. Stay with us. What unfolds next will leave you breathless. Let's begin. The wine glass tilted in Lauren's hand, catching the golden light from the rooftop chandeliers just as the message lit up on Ben's phone. She hadn't meant to see it. She didn't come to this rooftop dinner in Manhattan to snoop, to search for signs. She came to close the biggest deal of her career, a $42 million AI infrastructure contract between Stratacore and Barnes Tech, a deal she had spent 11 months building, clause by clause, slide by slide. But when Ben stepped away to take a call, his phone buzzed on the table beside the bread plate. Lauren was merely adjusting her glass so it wouldn't tip. That's when the screen lit up. Let her close the deal, then cut her loose. Sent by Daniel Reeves, the newly appointed CEO of Stratacore. The words didn't flicker. They didn't blink away. They seared into her vision like a cigarette burn. Her hand froze midair, and the stem of the glass trembled in her grasp. For a split second, the entire rooftop faded. The clinking of cutlery, the low hum of laughter from the Barnes Tech table, the faint sounds of midtown traffic below. She blinked. Ben was back, grinning that overly rehearsed grin. "Sorry about that," he said, slipping into his seat. "Investors." "Of course," she murmured, and raised her glass to toast. But inside, something in her had begun to shift. Beneath the cream linen tablecloth and the polished surface of small talk, she replayed every warning sign she'd ignored, every late night she had stayed behind, every project where Ben took the podium and she stood quietly to the side. But this was more than disrespect. This was strategic erasure. They wanted her to hand over the crown jewel, then vanish, and she almost had. She smiled through the rest of dinner, gracious, composed. A client from Barnes Tech, Claire Hoskins, raised her glass and said, "Lauren, your leadership is the reason this deal came together. Honestly, if you were running Stratacore, we would have signed this last quarter." Lauren forced a small laugh. "That means more than you know." The waiter poured another round. Everyone cheered. Except Lauren. She was already calculating. Later that night, back in her apartment overlooking the East River, she stood barefoot on the cold hardwood floor, her blazer discarded across the couch. Outside, the city shimmered, indifferent, relentless. She stared at the skyline, her thoughts louder than the silence. 3 times she had been passed over. First, after closing the Lockwell contract while her supervisor was on leave, Ben got the promotion. He hadn't even been in the country. Second, after launching the Xenon project, HR told her she was too valuable where she was. Third, just 6 months ago, she'd prepped her internal pitch, collected peer reviews, mentored juniors, nailed every deliverable, and still, nothing. Too sharp, too precise, too independent. That's what they'd whispered behind closed doors. A woman who doesn't ask for permission is harder to manage. Her phone buzzed. "Mom," the screen read. She let it ring twice before picking up. "Hi, baby," her mother's voice came, warm but alert. "You sounded tired the other day." "I'm fine," Lauren lied, staring at her reflection in the glass. "You sure?" "Yeah, just work." A pause. "I hope they see you. Really see you." Lauren swallowed hard. "They do," she whispered. But she was already thinking of the message, the cold clarity of it, the way her name didn't even matter in that text. Another ping, this time from Jamie, her assistant and the only person at Stratacore who had never underestimated her. No subject, just a file. Q4 restructure draft. Lauren opened it. Ben's name was everywhere. Her name wasn't listed, not even once. No track, no role, no future. That's when the bitterness turned. Hardened, focused. 2 months ago, she'd met with Daniel Barnes from Barnes Tech for coffee. She thought it was just a friendly update. Instead, he asked her, "Why are you still there?" She'd laughed it off then. But now, The question clawed its way back, and with it came his offer. If you ever build something of your own, we'd back you. Fully. She hadn't replied then, but that night, after everyone had gone to bed, she opened her laptop and began researching. Quietly, carefully, business licenses, LLC structures, IP law. She filed the paperwork under Atlas and Hale, a name born from a street she grew up on, and a woman who taught her how to fight without raising her voice. She opened a business account at a quiet credit union under a discreet shell entity. She drafted clean versions of her decks, not company files, hers. Everything she had authored, original and unsanctioned. And Jamie, sharp, loyal Jamie, knew. The night she found Lauren alone in the server room, she didn't ask. She just said, "Whatever this is, I'm in, unless you tell me not to be." Lauren handed her a USB. Clean files only. No signatures. No trace. 2 hours later, Jamie slid it back across the desk. No metadata. It's yours. They never spoke of it again. Not until the day Lauren's login failed. She arrived at Stratacore at 8:01 a.m. Her badge beeped red. Her email was locked. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. No explanation. No goodbye. Within minutes, projects she had led were reassigned to Ben. Her name erased from internal systems. At her desk, she found an unmarked envelope. Inside, a black USB and a sticky note in Jamie's handwriting. "You'll need this. It's everything you built." Lauren sat still, not broken, just awake. That night, her phone rang. "Hi, baby," her mom said. "Do you want me to come over?" Lauren's voice cracked. "No, I just need to get through tonight." "You don't have to be better," her mother said. "You just have to be honest with yourself." When the call ended, Lauren collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking in the quiet. But when the tears stopped, something was left behind. Resolve. She opened her email. A message from Daniel Barnes, sent 2 months ago. "You know what you're worth." She stared at the USB, then opened the final version of the contract, her version. She removed the Stratacore logo and typed instead, "Atlas and Hale, authorized representative, Lauren Shaw, CEO." Her hands trembled, not from fear, from something deeper, control. What would you do if the people who promised to lift you up planned to erase you instead? Have you ever kept a secret that became your greatest source of power? Because when Lauren hits send, the game changes forever, and no one at Stratacore is ready for what she's about to unleash in part 2. The morning sun cut across Lauren's living room like a blade, sharp and golden. She hadn't slept, but she wasn't tired. Not anymore. Her laptop sat open on the dining table, the contract displayed on the screen. Every line, every clause, hers. She stared at the signature block again. Atlas and Hale. Lauren Shaws. Her fingers hovered over the send button, a deep inhale, then click. The silence afterward was stunning. She closed the laptop slowly, walked to the window, and watched as the city stirred to life below. Delivery vans double parked. Joggers with earbuds passed beneath blooming cherry trees. Business as usual. Except it wasn't. Within 12 minutes, her phone vibrated. "We approve. Funding is ready. Public announcement goes out Friday. Welcome to the table, Lauren." Her knees almost buckled. She gripped the edge of the windowsill and stared down at her trembling hands. It was real. Atlas and Hale was no longer an idea. It was a company, and it had just landed the biggest AI infrastructure deal in the quarter. A second message followed. "Eric, Barnes Tech Legal, please forward banking details. Wire scheduled for EOD." Lauren blinked, her vision swimming. They were serious, fully committed. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a call. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Another, then 6 more. She didn't answer any of them, until she saw the name Ben. She stared at the screen as it rang. Her thumb hovered over decline, but then she let it time out. He called again, left a voicemail, then a text. "Ben, Lauren, we need to talk. I know what you did. Call me." She didn't. Instead, she forwarded the messages to Alan Price, her attorney. He called within minutes. "Congratulations," Alan said. "You just set a fire they can't put out." "They're going to retaliate," Lauren said. "Of course they are," Alan replied dryly. "That's what people do when you take away their leverage. But legally, you're clean. I reviewed everything last night. No non-compete, no proprietary conflict. They can threaten, but they can't touch you." Lauren stared at her reflection in the window. "They'll try anyway." Alan didn't argue. Let them. I'll be here when they do. By noon, the article had gone live. Tech Edge Daily featured the announcement with a blurred photo of her shaking hands with Daniel Barnes. Her name wasn't in the caption, but the hint was deliberate. People noticed. The first client email came an hour later. Lauren, congratulations. We want to move our entire account under Atlas and Hale. Stratacor's brand meant nothing. We followed you. Then another. Graham Lee, not surprised you're behind the Barnes deal. We always knew where the brilliance came from. Let's schedule a transition. Lauren read each message slowly, hands still trembling, but the one that stopped her cold came just before sunset. From Linda Rowe, Stratacor PR Director. Subject, touching base. Hi, Lauren. I saw the announcement. I admit I'm surprised and honestly impressed. I'd love to talk off the record. Hope we can clear the air. Clear the air. Lauren nearly laughed out loud. When they erased her from the leadership track, Linda said nothing. When they reassigned her projects to Ben, Linda stayed silent. Now she wanted to talk. Lauren forwarded the message to Jamie, who replied instantly. PR is in panic mode. Marcus cracked his phone case, slamming it down. Linda just asked around if anyone knows how to reach you. Lauren wrote back, pretend you don't. Then came the courier. She opened the envelope with steady hands. Stratacor letterhead, legal watermark. They were threatening litigation for client interference and misappropriation of strategic materials. She barely read it. She didn't need to. She slid it across the table to Alan at their next meeting. He smirked. They've got nothing. You were never a formal employee, remember? She did. How could she forget? Every time she asked about full-time status, they said it was under consideration. They wanted the flexibility of a contractor without offering the security. That decision, the one they thought saved them money, had just stripped them of any legal claim. But even as Alan drafted a brutal, airtight response, something inside Lauren shifted. It wasn't victory she felt. It was something darker. She had done everything right, played the game, delivered results, trusted the wrong people, and in return, they tried to erase her. Now, they were crumbling, and part of her didn't feel triumphant. She felt hollow. When Jamie dropped by the next evening with takeout and sparkling wine, Lauren barely touched her food. You did it, Jamie said, clinking glasses. You burned it all down and built something better. Lauren stared at the flickering candle between them. Did I? Jamie frowned. Of course. You're building a legacy. Lauren looked at her carefully. Then why do I feel like I lost something? Jamie didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, because you cared. You gave a part of yourself to a place that didn't deserve it. Lauren nodded slowly. A part of her still lived back there. In that corner office she never got. In the projects she never got credit for. In the woman she had to kill off to survive this one. Have you ever had to burn a part of yourself just to move forward? And wondered if what rose from the ashes was still truly you? Because as Stratacor prepares its counterattack, and Lauren's identity as Atlas and Hale's CEO starts to attract more attention than she planned, she'll have to face a deeper question. What if becoming powerful means becoming unrecognizable? The office was quiet, bathed in the kind of early morning light that turned glass into gold and dust motes into something sacred. Lauren sat alone at her desk, coffee cooling beside her untouched, the skyline of Lower Manhattan stretching endlessly outside her window. The world was still, but inside her chest, something heavy moved. It had been 6 weeks since the Barnes Tech deal went public, 6 weeks since Stratacor imploded from within. They had withdrawn their lawsuit the same week 5 major clients migrated to Atlas and Hale. Investors pulled out. Ben was quietly removed from his role. Linda had released a PR statement about strategic realignment that fooled no one. And Daniel Reeves, the CEO who once texted about cutting her loose, was now under internal review. Lauren should have felt vindicated. She'd won. But victory didn't feel the way she imagined. It wasn't a roar. It was a hush, a kind of echo in a cavern that no one else could fill. She had her company, her clients, her name at the top of the letterhead. But some mornings like this one, she woke up wondering if something essential had been traded along the way. Then came the knock. Jamie stepped into the room, carrying a slim envelope and an unreadable look. "It's from Daniel Barnes," she said quietly. "Hand-delivered. No assistant." Lauren stared at it for a moment before taking it. Her fingers ran over the weight of the envelope. Heavy paper, a single red wax seal. Barnes' text crest. She opened it slowly. Inside, a letter. "Lauren, there's a room in our downtown campus, boardroom A6. You probably remember it. We met there the day you pitched version 3 of the strategy brief. That room's being renamed next week. The Lauren Shaw Room. Not because of the deal, but because of the way you made people feel heard. Because of how you worked. The kind of integrity you carried, even when we didn't deserve it. You may have walked away from the company, but you didn't walk away from the people. We remembered, and we always will. If you ever build something bigger, call us first. Respectfully, Daniel Barnes." Lauren folded the letter carefully, pressed it flat on her desk. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she looked up at Jamie. "Did you know about this?" Jamie smiled. "Nope, but I'm not surprised." Lauren's voice was quiet. "They're naming a boardroom after me." Jamie nodded. "Because you changed the game." Lauren leaned back in her chair, blinking fast. Her throat felt tight. There were no parades, no confetti, just a room in a building. But it meant something. Not because of her name on the door, but because someone remembered how she fought. And why. That evening, Lauren took the long way home. She walked through Bryant Park, led past office workers drinking cocktails in plastic cups, past street musicians whose chords echoed off stone, past tourists who had no idea that just blocks away she had rewritten her future with a single email. When she got home, there was a voicemail from her mother. "Hi, baby," her mom said, her voice soft with pride. "I saw the article. I know you don't always feel it, but I see you. I see the girl who stayed up studying with flashcards and told her teachers she wanted to build empires, not just survive them. I see the woman who didn't break when they tried to erase her. You didn't just win, you stayed you. That's what makes it matter." Lauren sank onto the couch, clutching the phone against her chest. She had fought so hard to be seen. Now she realized, maybe she already had been, just not by the ones who signed the checks. Later that night, she found herself back at her desk. She opened a blank page, a new folder. She titled it, Vision 2025, Beyond Infrastructure. Her hand hovered over the keyboard. Then she wrote, "Not everything that breaks is lost. Some things break open." Behind her, the city lights glittered, careless and constant. Lauren closed the laptop and stood by the window. Somewhere far below, someone was waiting for their chance, just like she once had. And maybe one day, they'd find themselves sitting in the Lauren Shaw Room, wondering if it was really possible to win with grace in a world built on politics and power. Maybe they'd ask themselves if it's worth fighting for your name, your work, your worth. And maybe they'd realize it is. Always. How did this story make you feel? Was there a moment that resonated deeply with your own experiences? If you loved this story, comment 100 below to let us know. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. We'd love to know how far this story has reached. Share this story with a friend who needs to be reminded of their worth. Thank you for watching Life Stories.